Marcus Hayes was mopping the hospital corridor at 2 in the morning when he heard his daughter scream from the parking lot, and what happened in the next 60 seconds would change everything he thought he knew about justice. He dropped the mop, his heart exploding in his chest, and ran toward the sound, bursting through the emergency exit into the cold night air where he saw her, his 8-year-old Lily, standing frozen beside their old station wagon, tears streaming down her face as 3 men surrounded a young woman in a navy dress uniform, pushing her against the concrete pillar, laughing as she struggled to break free. "Daddy, please help her," Lily cried, and Marcus didn't think, didn't hesitate, he just moved. The first man, tall with a snake tattoo crawling up his neck, turned and sneered. "Walk away, janitor, this doesn't concern you." But Marcus was already there, his hand locking onto the man's wrist with the kind of grip that makes bones crack. "Let her go," Marcus said, his voice quiet, deadly calm. And the man laughed, actually laughed, until Marcus twisted his arm behind his back and sent him crashing into the pavement. The second man lunged, pulling a knife from his jacket, the blade glinting under the parking lot lights, and the young officer screamed, "He's got a weapon!" But Marcus was already moving, sidestepping the thrust with the fluid precision of someone who'd done this 1,000 times before, catching the man's arm mid-swing and driving his elbow into the attacker's temple so hard the knife clattered to the ground and the man collapsed like a puppet with cut strings. The third one, the biggest, charged like a bull, 300 pounds of rage and muscle, and Marcus planted his feet, caught the man's momentum and used it against him, flipping him over his shoulder in a move so clean, so perfectly executed, that even Lily stopped crying for a moment to watch her father, this janitor in a faded uniform, take down 3 men in less than a minute without breaking a sweat. The young officer slid down the pillar, gasping, shaking, her cap fallen to the ground, and Marcus knelt beside her, his voice gentle now. "You're safe, ma'am. I've got you." And she looked up at him with eyes full of shock and gratitude, trying to speak, but the words wouldn't come. Security arrived, their flashlights cutting through the darkness, and the head guard, Thompson, who'd always treated Marcus like he was invisible, like furniture, stared at the 3 men on the ground, then at Marcus, then back at the men, his mouth hanging open. "What the hell happened here, Hayes?" Thompson demanded, and before Marcus could answer, the officer stood, steadying herself, and said, "This man just saved my life, that's what happened," her voice gaining strength with every word. Thompson called the police, and while they waited, Marcus held Lily close, stroking her hair, telling her everything was okay now, but his hands were shaking, not from fear, from something else, something he'd buried 20 years ago. The police took statements, arrested the 3 men, and one of the officers, a grizzled veteran with kind eyes, looked at Marcus and said, "That was some impressive work. Where'd you learn to move like that?" But Marcus just shook his head, "Just got lucky," and the officer didn't push, even though they both knew that wasn't luck. The next morning, Marcus showed up for his shift at 6 a.m. like always, pushing his cart down the pristine hallways, emptying trash cans, scrubbing floors, invisible again, just the way he liked it. He was cleaning the 3rd-floor bathrooms when Thompson's voice crackled over his radio. "Hayes, get to the main lobby, now." And Marcus felt his stomach drop, because nothing good ever came from being summoned to the lobby. He walked on the stairs, his shoes squeaking on the linoleum, expecting trouble, expecting questions he didn't want to answer. But when he pushed through the double doors into the lobby, he froze. Standing there in full dress uniform, rows of medals gleaming on his chest, stars on his shoulders catching the morning light, was Admiral James Blackwell, and beside him was the young officer from last night, standing at attention, and behind them were 6 other naval officers, and the entire hospital staff had gathered, doctors, nurses, administrators, everyone staring at Marcus like they were seeing him for the first time. Admiral Blackwell stepped forward, his shoes clicking on the tile, and Marcus instinctively straightened, muscle memory taking over, and the Admiral stopped 2 feet away, studying Marcus's face with eyes that had seen everything. "Lieutenant Commander Marcus Hayes," the Admiral said, his voice carrying through the silent lobby, and Marcus felt 20 years of carefully constructed walls began to crumble. "I thought we'd lost you." The room erupted in whispers, confusion rippling through the crowd, and Thompson stood there with his mouth open, his face turning white. The Admiral continued, louder now, "This man isn't just a janitor. He's a decorated Navy SEAL who received the Silver Star for valor, who saved 17 lives in Kandahar, who was one of the finest warriors this nation has ever produced." And with each word, Marcus felt himself shrinking and growing at the same time, wanting to disappear, wanting to be seen.
Lily pushed through the crowd, her small hand finding his, and she looked up at him with eyes full of questions, and Marcus knew everything was about to change. The young officer stepped forward, her voice clear and strong. "Sir, last night this man saved my life, and I didn't know. I had no idea I was being protected by a hero." And tears were streaming down her face now. "Thank you, sir, thank you." Admiral Blackwell turned to the hospital director, a pompous man named Carrington, who'd walked past Marcus 1,000 times without acknowledgement, and said, "This man has been working here for how long?" And Carrington stammered, "3 years, Admiral." And Blackwell's jaw tightened. 3 years, you had a Silver Star recipient mopping your floors, and nobody knew, nobody cared to know? His words cutting like knives, and Carrington's face went from white to red. The Admiral turned back to Marcus, and his voice softened. "The Navy needs you, Marcus. We've needed you. And whether you come back to us or not, I want you to know something. I want everyone here to know something." And he reached into his jacket and pulled out a medal, holding it up for everyone to see. "The woman you saved last night, Lieutenant Sarah Chen, she's my daughter, and you gave me back the most precious thing in my world. So whatever you need, wherever life takes you, you have the full weight of the United States Navy behind you." Marcus stood there, his daughter holding his hand, tears running down his face that he didn't bother to hide anymore. And he realized that sometimes being invisible is just another way of hiding. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let yourself be seen. And as the crowd began to applaud, slowly at first, then building to a thunderous wave of sound, Marcus Hayes, janitor, father, warrior, finally allowed himself to stand tall again.